The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Covering crime in Chicago is sort of like covering a parade these days. You have these local network affiliates that just set up little reviewing stands, and then you make commentary while the crimes happen in real time. This was CBS Chicago on Sunday, providing some color commentary to a bunch of people looting a Foot Locker at 33rd and King Drive live.
We're told that no police are on the scene right now, and Dave, we can actually see people.
Yeah, they're just picking. That guy right there has 4 boxes. That guy's walking out with 2 boxes, looking right at our cameraman, Lou. Lou, I hope you're safe out there. This is obviously all happening right now, unfolding at 33rd and King Drive. Someone smashed the window. She's clearly on camera. You can identify her now. And here's another woman. She's walking out with, I don't know what that is.
It appears to be some,
maybe?
Or clothing. With some tag.
Oh, I'm watching it right now that you like. Wow.
It's great commentary.
Come and get it. Yeah.
Well, those are symbolic takings, as we learned during the Summer of Love in 2020.
Oh, my gosh.
I certainly hope that if you see any cars, or police did on Sunday, see any cars driving around with, boxed up to the roof of the car with shoes, nobody pulls them over, because we're making such great progress. We don't want to reverse the great progress we've made on traffic stops. This comes from a state-funded media analysis of traffic stops by Chicago police, down more than 40% in the first half of this year as compared to last year. 130,000 fewer traffic stops from January through July 15th this year as opposed to last year. This is supposed to be received as an unalloyed good, except, wait for it, we still have a problem. Not that constitutional police traffic stops are down, but there is still a lack of equity when it comes to police stops across racial demographics. So, in other words, for example, Black and Latino residents are still being stopped more than white residents as a percentage of their population. And the important thing is not to prevent crime or to solve crime or to protect residents. It's to make sure that the police interact with residents of different racial demographics in ways that are proportional to their percentage of the population. That's the key. That's the key if you want a city that descends into madness and violence like Chicago has. For more on this and other law enforcement matters, we're pleased to be joined by Tom Weitzel, who was a police officer for 37 years in Riverside, and the last 13 he was the Riverside police chief. Tom, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Can you comment on this matter of police stops and the push to reduce the number of constitutional Chicago police traffic stops and what the impact is?
Yeah, a lot of those numbers are misleading to begin with. First of all, the study that's even done by the state through IDOT is extremely flawed, always has been. The data that's collected by police officers, most of the time they're checking the box that says other, because they just don't want to be able to guess the race of individuals they're stopping. They don't want to do it. If you're not white or African American, they're not guessing the other 6 boxes on there on island specific. They're just not doing that. And any chief or superintendent will tell you, Dan, without a doubt, that residents and citizens, one of the things they want is more traffic enforcement. They never get a request for less traffic enforcement. It doesn't happen. And police officers are trained to make these traffic stops to not only, on traffic violations, but to observe suspicious activity. If your officers can't discern what is suspicious activity in the patrol beat that they're assigned, they shouldn't be a police officer. But one of the skills you have to have is to be able to say that this isn't right. This isn't right, and then this isn't right at 3 a.m. This isn't right at 4 a.m. And if the Illinois Vehicle Code says that one taillight is against the law, that it is a traffic violation. If you stop that car for one taillight, that's lawful. But you would think from what some media outlets put out and some activists put out that the officers are conducting illegal traffic stops, which is completely false.
You know, it's funny. I commented this on this over the weekend when I saw the story, and I immediately thought of the criticism from when I was growing up of police as it pertains to, majority minority neighbors, particularly black neighborhoods in big cities, and the song, which is a favorite of mine, Public Enemy's 911 is a joke. The line from 911 is a joke that I thought of. They only come and they come when they want us, so get the morgue truck and embalm the goner. I'm not as good as Flava Flav, but the point is, the criticism then was, where are the police resources for our neighborhood? They just say, their attitude is just let them kill each other and then send the coroner to clean it up afterwards. That was the criticism then. Now, from the same people, that's what they want the police to do.
I just read an article that was published by the International Chiefs Association that said that over 88% of the calls that police respond to are calls they respond to. They're not self-initiated. So this belief that police are maybe stopping individuals based solely on race, for example, is fictitious. Like the officers, even on traffic violations, are responding to speeding cars in the neighborhood, suspicious cars. They're actually responding to something a citizen reported to the 911 center, and then they roll up on this car, and the car takes off, for example, and some cases pursue it or they make a stop, and then they're saying, well, you stopped me only because I am Hispanic, I'm African American, whatever. But the fact is, we're stopping you because we responded to a citizen calling 911, which is what the whole system is set up to do, right? But they're saying that the police are acting biased in that case, which is a total false narrative and not factual.
If you don't respond, you're racist, and if you do respond, you're also racist.
Yeah, you can't win, and that's why you see a lot of these. You just read about the traffic stops going down. I can tell you that officers. I mean, all three of my kids are still active police officers in Illinois. They don't want to be the next YouTube video. They don't want to be criticized. They don't want to be. Their bosses are criticizing them for basically doing their job. My opinion has always been, if you don't like these traffic laws, you don't like the Illinois Vehicle Code, go to Springfield and change it. But what happens is they come up with these policies like, hey, we're not going to prosecute this, like Kim Fox wanted to do. We're not going to prosecute a gun being found in the car if you stop that car for no license plates. Well, that's not the Illinois law. So if you want to do that, go to Springfield and change the law. Just don't use your prosecutorial discretion to not enforce legitimate laws on the books.
Well, look at the Dexter Reed case. I mean, he was stopped by Chicago police for not wearing a seatbelt, having tinted windows. And he shot a police officer, fired off 11 rounds, and everyone's acting like he's the victim because he shouldn't have been pulled over in the first place. And they turned it into a racial issue because they said he was pulled over because he's black.
And I saw comments that it was illegal to stop him. Well, he didn't have a seatbelt on, according to the filings from the city attorneys in their court pleadings for the case, the civil case and the criminal case, and yes, that is against the law, and you're going to say, well, that's a minor traffic offense. Well, there's a lot of minor traffic offenses that lead to good arrests. They lead to really good arrests, You're still violating the law. If you blow a stop sign, you blow a stop sign. So those are investigative techniques. And, I used to tell my officers that at the airports, for example, the TSA and other security personnel, they're trained on profiling. They're trained on criminal profiling, not racial profiling. They're trained on what to look for criminals, and that's the same thing the police officers are. They're looking at what's not right. Who wants a police officer working for your community that's going to go sit in a parking lot and wait for the next radio call to go answer? They need to be out there professionally aggressively, looking for, preventing crime. That's probably a main function of their job.
I wanted to get your reaction to something else I know that you wanted to address as well, and that was the police-involved shooting of Sonia Massey in Springfield. There has been an arrest of the police officer who shot and killed her. He's been charged with first-degree murder. The sheriff in Springfield, the Springfield Sheriff Department there, has apologized to the family and said, this is not how we train our officers. We did the vetting. This obviously was a terrible judgment call on behalf of the officer. This is the position that the police department is taking, even as the case is pending. And you wanted to address something about sort of the state of affairs when it comes to training, recruiting, and retaining officers that perhaps is a proximate cause of an incident like Sonia Massey.
Yeah, for sure. I'll tell you that I don't believe that anybody vetted them correctly. I mean, I had my detectives, and we would hire contractual employees also to do background investigations for employees or for candidates that would apply for the Riverside Police Department from out of state. And I could tell you that I don't think they did the right one. It's very difficult to get military records. Your investigators need to know what they're doing in these background investigations. They need to know how to read military documents, et cetera. I don't think that was done here. But I think one thing that's being overlooked.
Well, just sorry to interrupt, but you say that because there was a problem in this officer's time in military service.
Yeah, I mean, what I think they looked for is dishonorary discharge. Well, that isn't the only red flag in the military. And when you file for like a lot of police officers come in to law enforcement from the military, either military policing or they're just military veterans in themselves. And you really need to know how to get those military records, how to read them. They're not easy to read. There's a lot of government codes and a lot of stuff. So if you just see at the top general discharge or honorary discharge, that's not the end of the story. You really have to dig deep into somebody's military record to truly understand what that individual's record was in the military. It's not that easy. So that in one aspect, I don't believe they did a really good background investigation there. But I also feel that this push for depolicing, but the push for like lowering standards is absolutely contributed here. There's this nationwide push to lower entry standards for law enforcement officers, and it's actually happening. There's several states that have eliminated the physical fitness standards, entry standards altogether, and they've changed it to by the time you graduate the academy, you'll either be physically fit or they'll fail you, but they allow you to come in. The chiefs and sheriffs are under tremendous pressure to hire anybody just to fill a slot, because after the George Floyd incident, it's been brutal to hire police officers and retain them. And the chiefs and sheriffs are under this pressure to cover shifts. The unions are pressuring police administrators because their officers are working forced overtime, as you see in the city of Chicago, all the time. And they need more bodies to cover minimum shifts, sometimes per FOP contract negotiation. You have to maintain a certain amount of officers per shift, and they don't have those officers. So they're depleting task forces, they're depleting detectives, putting them back on the road just to try to fill slots. And I think you're seeing that the sheriff in these agencies in Illinois, especially the part-time ones, they're just looking for somebody that can get past the minimum requirements in Illinois to be a police officer, but the minimum requirements are being erased. The minimum entry-level requirements are just terrible, and I have never been a fan of that. But lowering those standards is that you're going to get less and less qualified individuals. You're just getting a warm body that they can put on a schedule that says you can cover an 8 or 12-hour shift.
Yeah, and they want, they meaning Sonia Massey's family and some, leaders in the black community want the Sangamon County Sheriff to resign, and he is refusing to do so. But why do you think he hired him knowing that he had 3 DUIs? Or does that not matter?
Yeah, I can't figure that one. Like one DUI, maybe you can reform something, give you a second chance. That's legitimate, right? But most of the time it's very difficult for a policeman because you still lose your license. So your license is suspended for a period of time. You obviously can't drive a squad car. For the second DUI, it's highly unlikely that you would be hired by any agency that did a good background. Because first of all, your municipality or city of Chicago, your insurance carrier isn't covering that all. So if that officer is involved in a crash, you're out. You're the city of Chicago's insurance and suburban municipalities are telling you you're on your own. We're not covering this officer. So that alone would, chiefs and sheriffs would not hire somebody like that. I don't know what they did, really what kind of background they did, except for it was very. I would venture that they didn't actually go out and talk to these other agencies. They didn't go talk to his neighbors where he lives, like a basic investigation. They didn't verify every single document that he turned in. Those investigations are complicated, and they take months. It doesn't happen quickly, but in order to do the best investigation you can, you have to put the work in. And it's not just sitting at your desk running people's names through your computer system. You got to go out, talk to their neighbors, talk to friends, more than they put on their application. It's really quite extensive.
Well, I mean, at 3 DUIs, you also perhaps have a substance abuse problem. So, I mean, the idea of hiring the person. So that was obviously a terrible error in judgment by that department. But I will say, because, you mentioned George Floyd. Well, Floyd's uncle was down there being part of this race hustling, making this a black-white thing. Well, by the way, the Sacramento County State's attorney is a white Republican named John Milhiser, and he's the one that brought first-degree murder charges against this police officer. And for those who haven't seen the video, because there's body cam video of this out, the call was made, 911 call, and the mom, Sonia Massey's mom, says she's basically paranoid, schizophrenic, and she gets jumpy if there's people that she doesn't know, and so on and so forth. So please don't hurt her. So in this case, even if he hadn't had notice, it would have been a bad shoot from what I saw. The fact that he did have notice makes it that much worse, especially if she was not armed, and the argument was, she had like a pot of boiling water, and she was preparing it to throw it on the officer from across the room. I mean, it's completely ridiculous in my view, but I wanted to get your take on it as well from what you saw, Tom. I mean, is there any defense for the approach that officer took?
No, I agree with you totally, Dan. I watched the entire video. In fact, I think it's worse than the George Floyd incident in Minneapolis. And the reason is because they're in her house, right? They're in the residence there, and that officer could have easily backed up. There's no question about that. He moved towards it. Yes, she did grab a boiling pot of water. Just back out of the house. There's no reason to even be pushing that situation. I don't know if you saw the beginning of the video. It's clear that she has some issues when they're
right.
Oh yeah. They asked her if she took her
meds. You need to make a judgment right there as a police officer. Like, you know what? First of all, I need to back up. I don't need to rush in here. Maybe we call the paramedics, get them coming, get another officer, and just stand outside. They already said on the video they checked the outside and there was no prowler. That's what they said. They were going into the house to probably make her feel better and check the inside of the house. But that's when a trained officer has to know to step out. And I could tell you most officers would have done that. They're like, I'm not going to do this. I mean, there's obviously an issue going on here that's beyond me, medical issue, and let's get somebody here that can help with that. I don't see any defense in that video at all, and I'm not one to do that. I'm certainly pro-police my whole life, but you have to call it when when there's something bad, you got to say that too. And that video is really bad.
Well, they
100%.
asked her for her ID too, so that's why they went into the house and she was going through her purse looking for her ID. Which I don't even know why they asked for that. But
Tom,
I don't even know that that's even valid. You know why? Because I guarantee you they were at that residence before. That's not the first call for service they had to her house. So all their dispatch has to do is look up that address. They could call it in on the radio, and they could see who they've had prior contact with. They don't. That asking for the ID in that situation is not a factor.
Tom Weitzel, Riverside Police Chief for the last 13 years of his nearly 40-year career at the Riverside Police Department. Tom, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I hope to have you back soon. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line. All right, coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer.
We'll talk a little bit of presidential security as well as national security. Steve Bucci, Heritage Foundation, our weekly conversation with him at 7:07.
But now into the newsroom we go. Here is Mike Scott.
CPD searching